It is really indeed a matter of great pleasure to welcome you all for today's program. As all of you are aware, the entire nation is celebrating many auspicious events like the completion of the 75th years of India's independence and 158th years of the birth anniversary of Sri Aurobindo, and more specifically India's presidency in G20 with the motto that one earth, one family and one future, that is in the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. But if we observe the current scenario of Puducherry is celebrating all this grand auspicious time in a different way. The Pondicherry Heritage Festival, which is being started from 1st Feb to it will be continued up to 15th of March. And under the dynamic leadership of Raghu, they have started the Water Festival, which started from 2nd Feb and it will be continued up to 22nd March. And it is really a matter of great pleasure for us to organize this today's program. And we are very happy that Professor Subramanyam Raju has accepted our invitation and joined for today's program. Today he will be speaking on the topic India from Maritime Perspectives. On behalf of Sri Aurobindo Society, I welcome you, sir. Also the faculty members, Professor Humayunji, students, and Mr. Joy. He was associated with the Department of South Asian Studies from the Puducherry University. I welcome you all for today's program. Before I start, I would like to introduce Professor Raju. Professor Adluri Subramanyam Raju is the Dean of International Relations, Professor and Head of UNESCO's Madanjeet Singh Institute for South Asia Regional Cooperation and South Asian Studies. He is also the coordinator of UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador, Madanjeet Singh Chair, and UGC Center for Maritime Studies, Pondicherry University. He was instrumental in establishing the Center for Maritime Studies in Pondicherry University. He was the recipient of Mahbub ul Haq Award, Regional Center for Strategic Studies, Colombo in 2003, School of Peace Award, New Delhi in 2002, and Kodikara Award in Colombo in 1998. He was also the Salzburg Seminar Fellow in 2006. He received the National Best Teachers Award C.V.S. Krishnamurthy in Tirupati in 2017 and Best Teachers Award twice in Pondicherry University 2013 and 18. He was a visiting fellow at the Bandara Nike Center for International Studies in Colombo. He is also a member of 3rd Task Force on Blue Economy FICCI, New Delhi. He is also an honorary adjunct fellow at National Maritime Foundation, NMF, New Delhi. He is on editorial board for 7 journals. He has published 26 books and 52 papers, and delivered 50 lectures and presented 93 papers in national and international conferences and other events. His forthcoming publication included authored Governance and Poverty in South Asia, a study with reference to India, Bangladesh and Nepal, and Emerging India Maritime Perspectives. I welcome Dr. Raju for sparing his valuable time for today's event. I also welcome Dr. T.P. Raghunathanji. He is the director for Svarnim Puducherry. The Svarnim Puducherry project of Sri Aurobindo Society is one of the unique projects. He is heading the department, a multi-dimensional initiative of Sri Aurobindo Society, which aims to initiate and take forward a new course of growth in Puducherry and its subsequent across India. In principle, the Svarnim Puducherry project is a unique project. It's an aspiration to building Puducherry as a model state, carrying the spirit and consciousness of true India in its foundation. I also welcome Raghu Bhai for today's program. As all of you know, that Sri Aurobindo Society is an international spiritual and cultural organization. The society has been recognized by the Government of India as a research institute under the DSIR, and it has its institution of national importance. The society is having more than 300 branches all over India. It works on education, health, culture, rural development, and many sectors. As far as the cultural affairs is considered, we have started many projects working on the intangible cultural heritage. We have also started the International Cultural Relations Department. Under this, we have planned this today's event. So before we proceed further, I would like to welcome Dr. Raju with a publication of Sri Aurobindo's in the book, sir. This is Sri Aurobindo's one of the unique writings, The Human Cycle, the Ideal of Human Unity and Moral Self-Determination. As all of you know that this program is being organized by AuroBharati, Svarnim, Puducherry and Pondicherry University as part of the festive celebration of the water festival. So before we proceed to listen from Dr. Raju, I request Raghu here to kindly say a few words about the water festival and the initiatives undertaken by the
Good evening, my friends. So, welcome to Sri Aurobindo Society. So, I will limit my words, just placing this particular program in the context of both Heritage Festival as well as the Water Festival. So, I think the topic of today, which Professor Raju will be talking, has got very much relevance as far as the heritage of Puducherry is concerned, as well as the water of Puducherry is concerned. Most of you will be knowing that Pondicherry is a new city which was retrieved from swampy lands maybe in the 15th, 16th century by the colonial powers. We had a very rich maritime history as far as Puducherry is concerned. I think the current Ariyangupam, where you can see still the remnants of the old Pondicherry is still there, where we used to have trade links with even as Romans as early as 1st century BC. I don't know much about the history of it, but we have a rich cultural heritage, maritime history as far as this Pondicherry bioregion is concerned. Water Festival, interestingly, this is our 4th edition, but the 3rd consecutive year we are having. We started in 2016. Again, Water Festival was in 2016. We had it in the entire bioregion, Puducherry, Villupuram, Aurobindo, Adluri, the entire bioregion was part of it. And later we had 3 years of only Pondicherry Festival. And currently we have again the bioregional Water Fest 23 is being celebrated. It's been celebrated. I think water, we always, whenever we think of water, we always think of problems. No? What is the TDS levels? Our drainage issues, solid waste, liquid waste, bad smell coming. But we try to look at it in a different manner. Rather than saying we have problems everywhere, we started looking at what are the solutions. Because problems are always there. And partly, we as citizens, we are the reason for such problems. Because we dump our ponds and lakes with waste, solid waste and other things. We release our liquid waste into the public drainage system. So, we looked at it from a different perspective, from a grassroots level perspective, like how we can celebrate water. Can we look at good examples where communities are managing their water resources in a very good manner so that others can learn from it and take lessons from them. So this was the objective by which we have been going to the communities, to the schools, to children, to farmers, to SHG women, cutting across all the sections of the society. We have been observing Water Fest 23 from 2nd February, which is the World Wetlands Day. Pondicherry, the new city itself was a wetland earlier. We have lost most of it for whatever the heritage city used to be a wetland before. So I think looking back at our cultural heritage, built heritage as well as natural heritage is actually quite a learning lesson for all of us. So from both Pondicherry Heritage Festival as well as Water Festival 2023. Another interesting area is that so far we have been looking at only at inland waters, the fresh water sources. Whereas we realize from Maritime to Adluri, if you take about 40 to 60 kilometers radius, half of it is in the sea, the ocean, the Bay of Bengal. and we have not been addressing the maritime, the ocean part of it, which is most of the water of earth is in the oceans, and we have not been considering this. And this year we have also included coastal yatras and dialogue with the fishermen communities, going to fishermen communities and see how we can maintain our coast, because coastal erosion is another issue which Pondicherry and the entire bioregion has been facing as well. So taking this into account, and we had Professor Venugopal who was here a couple of months back, who talked about intangible cultural heritage as a key component of the heritage festival as well. So water, since it's a natural heritage, it's an integral part of the heritage conservation efforts that has been happening since almost a decade now. I think Heritage Festival is almost reaching 10th year, and Water Festival will be touching, this is the 4th year that we are organizing it. So I think it is the right time we have so while we were discussing with Kishore Bhai that why not we also include maritime perspective also into this entire picture of heritage as well as water. This was the idea, I think, which came, and the name that came immediately to our minds was Professor Raju's name. So we are happy to host you, sir, in Sri Aurobindo Society, and maybe this is a beginning of a effort to look at maybe much more dialogues need to come. We need to talk to other neglected communities as well, because mostly communities are neglected. Whenever there is development process is happening, it's always top down, so there is not much of. So we are thinking of community level mapping. I think Joy is sitting here, who has been partly helping us with community level mapping, GIS mapping, use of technology and people's participation in such planning exercise, so that we have a hope for a better water secure future as well. So with this, I will conclude my opening remarks. I think over to you, Kishore.
I also welcome Dr. Devi Prasad Mishra. He is the Deputy Head from French Institute of Pondicherry, and he is heading one of the departments called manuscripts and very important collections they have. The Cyber manuscripts, yeah, the cyber manuscripts included in the UNESCO's Memory of the World Register program. So I welcome you, Devi Prasad Mishra. So today we are going to listen one of the important topics, India from maritime perspectives. Sri Aurobindo, in his writing, The Human Cycle, the ideal of human unity, war and self-determination, has mentioned one thing: the combination of overwhelming sea power with overwhelming land power can alone bring so vast an enterprise into the domain of real possibility. So when we talk about the maritime traditions, we find a lot of ocean of opportunities in terms of intangible cultural heritage, the eco-cultural heritage things, maritime security, and it's not about things, it's connecting peoples, it's connecting the civilizations all over the world actually. So we are eagerly interested to listen from you, and now the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Kishore Kumar Bhatti, for inviting me to share my views on maritime India. When we talk about maritime India, I think we need to look at what is the importance of ocean. Unless we know the importance of ocean, it is very difficult for any country to look into the priorities or the programs or the policies to be implemented. In that sense, when you look at in my presentation, I look at one is the relevance of ocean, and later my presentation would be on maritime history, and the third part of my presentation would be on India's maritime profile. Later presentation would be on India and Indo-Pacific or Indian Ocean, and what are the threats which are emanating from sea. And before concluding my presentation, I'll also concentrate on blue economy, how it is important for us. When we look at the relevance of sea, I look at sea, how it is bringing the connection between the societies, between the people, between the communities, between the governments, between the civilizations, or between the cultures. And there is a strong linkage between human development and the seas. And the sea is seen as a resource, as a means of transportation, information, and connecting people and state, as mentioned to you. And ocean is so important for us, and in the present context, because 60% of ships fly flags from different nationalities, and 85% of the countries in the world have coastline, and 75% of the world population live within 200 nautical miles, and 80% of capital cities are and international trade centers are located on the coast. And 36% of the world's seas, oceans are encompassed with the EEZ, exclusive economic zone. And besides, 95% of the trade goes through waters. Whether it is a coastal state or landlocked countries, they are largely depending on waters, on sea for their trade. In other words, globalization stems from waters, and I prefer globalization instead of globalization. I prefer the word maritimization of the world. Globalization, when you're talking about, there are some of the countries are now opposing globalization. They are now looking at deglobalization because it is having some problem for their national identity. And when you bring this notion of maritimization of the world, irrespective of their size and location, every state is depending on waters, whereby they cannot ignore the aspect of importance of ocean, since 95% of the trade goes through waters. And we look at that maritime trade has become a dominant factor in global affairs, and 21st century has been seen as the century of the seas. And when we look at maritime history of India, because we are not able to look at the importance of the sea in the present context, because we could not understand the history of India, because most of us, including me, as a student of maritime studies, I have no knowledge about the maritime history. Only I know the maritime history only after Britain or British came to India. Before that, what is happening? How the different rulers like the Satavahanas, Pallavas, Cholas, or Pandyas or Charas, how they were able to trade in different places, either to Southeast Asia or to the South Africa or to Rome and other places. And that is something very important for us, because that must be a cause for us. When we got independence in 1940s or late 40s, we are not able to understand the importance of trade through waters, and also other factors that really made us to concentrate more on land front, as either Pakistan or China, where we were mostly concentrating to deal with them. So mostly what happened, geographically we are blessed, but the consciousness about maritime was lacking till recent time. So when you look at that, that is something very important for us to look at how this maritime history needs to be seen in the present context. How do we contextualize that? Because those days no technology was available, and also the ships, how they move according to the movement of the winds. I think that is something very difficult task which they had faced, but then they were able to penetrate into different areas, and also they found the importance of oceans. And before British came to India, the GDP of India was seen as 24% of world's trade. After Britain left India, it was only 4% of GDP. What does it mean? This is, in other words, one can interpret that if you depend on waters, I think probably our GDP will grow. So we look at that, how new India or different India or maritime India could be seen in the present context. And also we know about it because in between 5th and 11th centuries, the command and control of the Malacca states were under Vizier Empire. But now you look at the present context, where Chinese are entering into South China Sea, and how Malacca Straits are now in dilemma for many countries to look into their trade through Malacca Straits, including China. And Sri Vijay Emperor was regarded as a god of Malacca Straits. But where are we now? So, unless we understand the history of India's maritime, it is very difficult for us to look into, maintain good order at sea, particularly in Indian Ocean, or to some extent beyond Indian Ocean, that is Indo-Pacific. And we hardly know about how Satavahanas had conducted trade with Romans, and how King Vijaya was able to expand his kingdom to Southeast Asia, and how South Indian kingdoms conducted trade. This is something very important for us, because before British, we were considered as very strong in shipbuilding. Now, the shipbuilding, our contribution is 1%, whereas South Korea, Japan and China are leading. Where are we now? How do we look at now? We are talking about emerging India. We are talking India is the fifth largest economy, and India is going to be seen as a major power in the present or in the future. Then how do we relate the past history, where the rulers were able to make shipbuilding very, very strong? And where are we now? Why 1% of world shipbuilding is contributed by India now? So how we ignored our history, and how Indian sailors and navigators could identify their routes. Now we have GPS. We have so many technologies where we can reach any part of the world. But those days, how they were able to reach different parts of the world for their trade, I think that is something very important for us to look into, and going back to the maritime history. And we are also either in the schools or in the graduation or in the university, we are not able to have any pedagogy on maritime history, though we are talking about other areas. But I think this is something very important, because India is a peninsula, and we need to look at how important for us to look into the importance of ocean. I think I have shown the map. I think it is the. Okay. I'll come back later. And now India has, and present government has realized the importance of maritime, and we are now seen by most of the countries in the Indian Ocean as a security provider or net security provider. And most of the countries in Indian Ocean are looking for any help, only they look at India. And that is something very important for us to look into, because on continental front, India failed to have good relation either with Pakistan or with China or with Nepal or with even Bangladesh. At the moment we have good relation, but then in the near future, what will be the relation with Bhutan, we do not know, because of the transformation from the kingdom to democracy, and democracy sometimes may have some problem with India. So this is what we look at about how this is very important for us to look at. On continental front, India failed to have good relation, but on maritime front, India has successfully had good relation with most of the countries in Indian Ocean or on maritime domain. So this is something where we need to look at how we need to look at the importance of ocean for us, and how new India could be seen from maritime perspective. And India has 2.1 million square kilometers of exclusive economic zone, or 1.2 million square kilometers. We are now asking to be regarded in the continental shelf. If that is going to be there, that 3.3 million square kilometers, we are going to have sovereignty over waters. And we have coastline 7,516 kilometers, and continental shelf we have 5,30,000 square kilometers, and we have more than 1,000 islands. And India is having 16th position in terms of having the exclusive economic zone, and India is seen as a security provider. And India has no maritime problem or maritime dispute except with Pakistan. So that is something where we need to look at how convenient, how we are, situated situated on maritime domain to have good relation with the other countries, and we never shown any hegemony or never shown any dominant kind of approach towards it. Any country when they are looking for any help from us, either tsunami or internal problems wherever, and particularly Maldives or Sri Lanka, India was able to help them. So and during COVID also, how India was able to help most of the countries in terms of supplying vaccine to them. And when you're talking about this maritime profile, continental India, the maritime India cannot be separated. And as Dr. Kishore Kumar cited the Sri Aurobindo's message about the land power and the sea power, if both go together, I think that is very, very important for any country to prosper. So in that sense, when you look at, so continental power, continental India, maritime India, if we look at 1 plus 1, I look at 2 mathematically, but it could be also more than 2. So this is how you look at, and they strengthen each other, complement each other. So this is something where we need to look at, and we need to go away from the continental mindset to maritime mindset. And this is something where we look at about the maritime jurisdiction, where India has a 16th position in terms of having exclusive economic zone in the world. And as I said, one of the projects by the Sri Aurobindo Society about the fishermen problem, where this is also very important for us to look into that, which is also part of blue economy, which I will come later. And this is what we have exclusive economic zone, which is very, very important for us looking at. This is where our destiny, our prosperity, our development is linked up with the jet. And we have Andaman Nicobar Islands, which are also very, very important, because it's 30% of Egypt is contributed by having having access to Andaman Nicobar Islands. But how, to what extent we have seen Andaman Nicobar Islands as important for India, because we look at about this Andaman Nicobar Islands have been neglected by India for a long time. But Andaman Nicobar Islands is very important for looking at either in terms of having entering into BIMSTEC or to Indo-Pacific or Indian Ocean. Most of the countries, including Western countries, are looking at India's role. Why? Because of the position of Andaman Nicobar Islands. But otherwise, Indian government was not able to look at the importance of Andaman Nicobar Islands. Only they know, and also 5% of India states go through Andaman Nicobar Islands. And Andaman Nicobar Islands can also play a very significant role in terms of looking at strengthening or developing the economy. And this is also, we look at about when Prime Minister is looking for $5 trillion economy by 2025 and $10 trillion by 2030. It is possible. One of the factors could be we have to look at the Andaman Nicobar Islands. I think this is something very important, because always we used to make the Andaman as a dump yard, or prisoners used to be sent there. But recent times it is now looking at how Niti Aayog is also talking about how natural harbor can be seen. As we know, 2 days ago, Tamil Nadu government was talking about bringing against some other ship canal project to have the Paradeep port to Tuticorin to have this SSCP canal to be opened. Of course, that is the other. It's a different debate here. It doesn't come into my presentation here. But then when you look at about natural harbors, we don't have, though we have a long coastline, but we don't have the way the Colombo has the Colombo port. So when you look at that, how this natural harbor could be seen in Andaman Nicobar Islands, that is something which is going to make a trading center, or it's going to be a hub for international trade. So this is something where we need to look at, and also the government is now looking at about how this Great Nicobar can be seen as the natural harbor, and also this Campbell Bay, which is located at Great Nicobar, is only 90 kilometers away from Malacca Straits, and that is going to be seen. In other words, international trade could be seen there. And then when you look at Indian Ocean, India has demonstrated its presence in Indian Ocean without having any hegemony, without any dominance in Indian Ocean. And that is something where we look at how India was able to demonstrate its kind of elder brother policy towards most of the countries in the maritime domain. And also India is also looking at expanding from Indian Ocean to Indo-Pacific. Of course, Indo-Pacific is a recent construct, a geopolitical construct, where they were talking about. Yeah. And also Indo-Pacific, where we get 38 countries are part of Indo-Pacific, and it shares 44% of world trade and 65% of the world population and 62% of our world GDP is represented by Indo-Pacific. And this is something where it also contains four largest economies like US, China, Japan, and India. And besides, there are 10 countries of Southeast Asian countries which are also part of it. And this Indo-Pacific is something very important for us to look at how, because when we are talking about shipping power from west to east, and we are now looking at how Indo-Pacific is going to be a dominant player in deciding the future of the world. And this is where we are talking about Quad comes into picture, where the four democracies become members in Quad: Australia, America, Japan, and India. So here we are talking about how it is coming, and then Quad is talking about the rules-based order. When you are talking about rules-based order, what is the necessity for us? Because the consciousness or about the concern about the Chinese penetration into the ocean, and particularly South China Sea, the way it is occupying South China Sea, and it is disturbing the countries of Southeast Asian countries who are also claiming equally the rights over South China Sea. In this context, they were talking about rules-based order. How do we bring this? When you're talking about rules-based order, where these four democracies are coming together in terms of Quad alliances, how do you bring China? That is something a difficult task. When you look at that, we are also looking at in the context of G20, India is the one country which can reach major powers or developing countries or underdeveloped countries or south or north. When you look at it, India has this position to reach many countries. Maybe also when you look at major powers like Australia, China, Japan, and America, probably when India could be a possible player to reach China, though we have problems with China. And also when you're talking about the climate change, which is also very important for a country like India, which is a peninsular in nature, and also we have so many problems with climate change. And climate change, when you are talking about, are you going to look at mitigating the GHG emissions 25 to 30%, then what would be the India's future? On one hand, we are talking about India is the fifth largest economy, and then on the other hand, if you are going for mitigating GHG emissions, the picture is going to be different, because poverty will be increased, GDP will be decreased. And when you're talking about this, on the other hand, when you're talking about this climate change, which is going to have impact on fisheries, on agriculture, on the refugees, how we are going to create climate, it will be resulted climate refugees, and moving from one place to another. We know in India how we are looking at from state to state, if any migration takes place, what are the problems we are witnessing in the recent past. So that would really make us, because of climate change, invariably people will be forced to leave their places, particularly the coastal community. And in case if it is going to be most of the countries or most of the cities, including Mumbai or Bombay, which is also on coast, if there is 1 meter rise in the sea, the sea level rises, then 7 million people would be displaced. So this is some of the things which are also having problem with India. And also when you're talking about this, how do we meet this? Because we, as mentioned, I think Mr. Raghunathan was talking about, there are so many problems, but we need to address those problems. And climate change, we are not responsible, we are not part of the problem, but then we cannot go away. We need to address the problem. We have to be part of the problem and solve the problem. In that sense only, recently the government was coming with the one sun, one world one grid, and that is something solar alliances, where France is also very involved very actively with India. And the Prime Minister was envisioning about 140 countries to be connected through common grid, which will really help us to shift from fossil fuels to non-fossil fuels, which will not, which will reduce these emissions of GHGs. And that is something very important for us when look at about how the solar energy could really help us in terms of mitigating GHGs emissions. And particularly India is, is energy is based on coal-based plant, which is 70% of our energy goes through coal-based plant, and which is also emitting GHGs. So this is something very important for us to shift from coal-based to solar, and that is something we are looking at in the recent initiatives. We have seen that. And the next component of my presentation is blue economy, because this is something very important for us, and particularly these coastal states brought this notion of blue economy because they are concerned about the climate change, because sustainability is very important. When without sustainability, the countries, the coastal countries would be in danger. And so this initiative was brought out by the small coastal states, and particularly like Maldives, like Mauritius, Seychelles, Madagascar, and some of these small islands in the western part of the ocean. So this is the blue economy offers an approach to sustainable development in a better suited to their circumstances and constraints and challenges. So, and developing blue economy is a global trend now. Every country is now looking at how this developing blue economy has become a prerequisite for any government, any country's development. And ocean has become economic force in the 21st century, and ocean has become seen as a last frontier of economic growth. So this is what we look at. But however, this is a problem when you look at the how much revenue we get, and there is no account for a revenue which we get from sea. So unless we know about the revenue, how much we get, it is also very difficult for us to look at how our policies can be implemented. So, so we have to look at other aspect is also blue economy is also recommending for exploring resources locally to avoid the conflicts and look at the local people welfare. That's also something very important, where in the Aurobindo Society is also looking for fishermen problem. I think this is also one aspect which needs to be seen. And also it is also trying to look at about the SDG goals, and particularly SDG goal 14, which is also talking about sustainable development, and by 2030 every country is supposed to fulfill this agenda. And what are these these sectors? They're all there earlier, but then how do we look at, because we bring sustainability in our exploration, either from fisheries or shipping or tourism or offshore oil and gas or ferry service or transport or marine biotechnology or marine mining. If you look at, very important for us to look at, and these are the areas which need to be taken when a country like India can also affordable to explore, which could result in terms of enhancing India's economic growth. And fisheries, if you look at the marine fishery is less than the aqua fishery. I think that is something very need to be taken. The government of India is now looking at how to look at about these fisheries to be the catchment of fisheries, why it is less than. We look at the catchment of fish in aquaculture and shipping, which is also very important. Looking at about the shipbuilding is something where we need to look at, because there are constraints in WTO which makes us not to go for increasing or giving subsidy to the private sectors. I think we need to come out from that. I think that is one area of looking at. And also tourism, which is also very important when we look at about to enhance our economy. Under marine biotechnology, there are so many species are coming, and this is something very important when in the recent past when you're talking about is COVID, which makes us to understand about how health sector is very important. And marine technology will also give us some, different variety of medicines which are very useful either for cancer, either for asthma, or either for some of the treatments which we don't have sufficient medicine. And also, this is very important when you're talking about the different sectors in blue economy. We need to bring blue clusters because we have to look at the different sectors are mostly working in isolation, which leads to more expensive, more labor, and more non-profit. They end up with that. So now this is something in blue economy we talk about blue clusters. That is what integrated most of the sectors, because the fisheries will have impact on tourism, or pollution will have impact on tourism. So there are so much link between the sectors which are to be integrated to look at in a holistic manner to implement it in different sectors. And also, marine spatial planning is a small area to be identified, and you can explore more, maximize the resources. This is also another area of looking at to develop blue economy, to enhance blue economy, which is still not given importance to this. And this is something where the government of India is yet to explore this aspect, because MSP is very important to look into, where it will also reduce the investment, reduce time, and also more profit in terms of getting more resources in a particular place. So we need to look at about, there are some conflicts between the sectors. When you look at fisheries, where there will be a mining, so we need to look at about how much we are going to get if we are going for mining. If we are going for fisheries, how much we are going to get. So we need to look at about how much benefit we get from each sector. I think unless we know about it, very difficult for us to think about the relevance or implementation or developing the economy. I think when we look at about this maritime, I look at as a student of maritime studies that it is not because of Chinese presence in Indian Ocean, but the Indian policies pursued by India had implication for Delhi. Because when you look at about that, one citation can be seen about Hambantota port in Sri Lanka, which was offered to India twice when Mahendra Rajapaksa was prime president, but then that was not taken by us because it was not not economically suitable for the private sectors. So that was the reason. But then later China took it, and now we look at how our concern about the movement of ships in Hambantota port. So this is somewhere we need to look at how our long-term strategies need to be taken very consciously or cautiously. Otherwise, we will have problems in the near future. So we also look at about Sabka Saath Sabka Vikas, which was also announced by Prime Minister about collective effort and inclusive growth, which is also now part of our G20 Indian Presidency, where we are talking about, as Dr. Kishore Kumar was talking about, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or oneness or one family, where we are also bringing this notion across these little states in Indian Ocean. And also when we are talking about Sagar, security and growth for all in the region, this is what India's tradition, India's policy towards the coastal states. And coastal states do not have any apprehensions over India's penetration in different parts of Indian Ocean, because India never, as I mentioned to you, never showed its hegemony. And also, I look at it in a different way. Maybe you may not agree with my proposition about G20, where I would like to bring this Samudra Manthan. Samudra Manthan is something where we are talking about the war between angels and demons. And that is something that we look at now. When we are talking about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, can we relate to this Indian mythology, talking about Samudra Manthan, where we can talk about angels are like coastal states and demons like the maritime threats. So in that sense, we need to look at how to bring the states, and we should not blame any state, but we need to look at that how to articulate, how to navigate this trust between the states, which need to be taken for the consideration to bring the states together to work against the maritime threats, because there are so many threats which are faced by most of us. So that's something very important for us to look into. And also we are looking at, for the past, because since independence, we are talking about stability, peace and security, prosperity. That is the agenda for us in the maritime domain. Though we tried on the continental front, but we failed to look into because of various reasons, which really did not make us. And also we have given this, we navigated this, the way we are talking about. Only we look for partnership and not for dominance, and that is something where we need to look at about how we can talk about subclass because which is very important. And also we are talking about ocean wealth and ocean health. And we cannot extract ocean wealth unless we have healthy oceans. I think that is also one of the important aspects when we are talking about economy to be extracted from ocean. And also we are known for protecting biodiversity, and that is something where we have to articulate to the rest of the world about how we are able to protect the biodiversity. I think that is something very important for us to look into. And also we are also trying to look at to protect the sea lanes of communication, whereby in the Quad also we made a kind of what is that? The statement of rules-based order, and that is articulating to in terms of having safe passage in waters. And and India cannot become economic power unless it becomes maritime power. And there is a link between maritime power and maritime economy. I think that is something we need to look at. And also we have always feel that we are talking about Kashmir to Kanyakumari. I think this is the time for us to look into Kashmir, not to Kanyakumari, up to Andaman Nicobar Islands or up to Indira Point. And also when you're talking about we have to need to look at how M. Manikar was in 1946 itself. He was advocating about how India needs to look at the importance of maritime, and that was also very important how to relate the message or articulation made by K. M. Manikar. And also most of our understanding is based on the literature, which is English literature, which is available to us. But we need to look at now how this vernacular language, the local languages, which are also very important to understand about the real maritime history or India's maritime history. And I look at this because land divides countries and people, but ocean unites countries and people. And this is something very important for us to look at how oceans are so important and particularly important to India.
It was really an excellent lecture. Talking to Professor Raju is always a pleasurable moment for me. But listening to him, his vast knowledge in his subject domain has specific importance. He touched on many important aspects of India's maritime relations, including the maritime security, the blue economy, and also connecting people and connecting the cultures. This was really an excellent and informative lecture, sir. And we can have a little discussion if based on interactive section. Now the floor is open if anybody wants to ask any question.
Just for information, MSP has been launched in Pondicherry. There are two places, Lakshadweep and Pondicherry, where the Ministry of Earth Science has launched the MSP.
And 70th we were in Antonax. 70th we were in Antonax.
So they had the launcher here in Pondicherry, then they went to
Lakshadweep.
That is what they recently last week they were also
Yes.
they were talking about
The secretary had come and the ambassador.
Yeah.
They are doing it in partnership with the Norwegian.
Yeah, not yes, this is the thing. But then we have to. This is what recently we have done. It is only pilot step.
And just the data collection.
Their data collection. But
Now the whole thing has to evolve in the stakeholder participation, and the whole plan has to be evolved. As of now, they only have the data from various government departments.
And also, this is a pilot study to look at only Pondicherry, Lakshadweep, and so why So for the past, when you look at the Western countries, they have already implemented the reverse MSP, which is very, very important because when you look at about the development or particularly through economy, MSP is a crucial or enabler. So this is what we recently, I think 4 days, 5 days ago only they had this. And this is also pilot study, but not at large scale, not implemented. So this is what we have. So when you start it, it takes another 20 to 30 years to implement.
Yeah,
So we are
discussion, you have to take all the stakeholders.
Yes. Yeah.
The whole approach to this NSP has been to ignore the stakeholders for the large part. And particularly at this pilot stage where India is quite nascent in this partnership with local communities, that maturity hasn't yet been achieved. So we are not yet sure which direction MSPs will take, I believe. And it also ignores quite a bit of the history of the stakeholders. We talk about the Cholas and we talk about the Roman trade, and then we jump into the colonial era and the modern. But in between, there were a lot of traders in the fishing community who actually encompassed the whole globe. There was Sri Aurobindo from Pondicherry itself, the fishing member, who had both shipbuilding, I believe, as well as trade with the American British colonies around the country. And Sri Aurobindo is also deeply connected with the socialist movement in India. One of the first members of South India who participated in the Communist Party manifesto for India. So there's a lot of history surrounding us, and I'm so glad the professor is here, and the students also, because this is an opportunity just low-hanging fruit surrounding all of us. We tend to get a bit siloed in certain ways of looking, lenses that we are being taught to look at things, but slightly out of the box, immediately we can find opportunities to study and make our studies more multidimensional.
Not only Cholas or something, because power is in Delhi, it is always that South Indian history is neglected. Like we never read about Cholas, like we read about Cholas, but other than Cholas, we never read about any other South Indian history because they don't get affected by the ocean. They like neglected the oceans like these many years. So the power in the center, they should change their perspective. That's what I think.
I think when we want to know about maritime history, I think this is what is missing in my presentation. We have to reverse the map and then look at it. Because the way we see the map is not correct for India. We need to reverse the map and understand how vast area on maritime we have. Because we always look at north and look at only land or continental mindset we have. But we never think back. So it is better for anyone to understand about India or maritime India. We need to reverse the map and understand how important Southeast Asia, how important Indian Ocean, how important the western part of Indian Ocean. So I think we need to look at, because this is what at the school level we need to inculcate this kind of a thing to understand about it. But that is not happening because it is someone is looking at the map should be supposed to be seen like this, and we see. So I think that is invariably we have a problem in understanding India's history.
There is also a lot of maritime tensions, especially with the neighbors. China is trying to appease our catchment area, I think. So how do you see this as a challenge?
No, I don't think in the maritime domain China is penetrating into our area. It is only looking at the neighbors. They are looking at about the Djibouti. They are looking at, because in the western part of Indian Ocean also where India has a stakes, and also looking at Sri Lanka, But otherwise, if you look at, I don't think China will be in a position to compete with us. China, that is what we are talking about. American is bringing this notion of string of pearls, because that is not going to work. China cannot do with it because the geographical position which makes the geographical position which make India so comfortable. Bangladesh cannot give any base for China, and Sri Lanka also cannot give, because now this is very important for us to look into. Temporarily there may be, but now they are also reluctant to have this access to Chinese activities about, but they were economically, the situation in Sri Lanka, which they were not able to say, voicing against Chinese action, the kind of movements of their ships in closer to home. Otherwise, string of pulse, I don't think.
So the Coco Islands of Myanmar was like Chinese, they were giving to Chinese infrastructure. So that happens, the whole of the east coast will be under Chinese surveillance. So we can't say that it is not safe. Like Chinese are trying to like win war against India in waters too.
I don't think as a student of maritime studies on continental self, yes, continental front, yes. On maritime front, I don't think India will have a problem with China.
Professor, how does the Look East policy, which is more, has been in the past more continental oriented, land connectivity through to the ASEAN countries, how does that affect your proposition on the maritimeization of the Indian Ocean, the Bay of Bengal area? Are the two already well aligned with each other as far as India's policy is concerned, or
No, with reference to Southeast Asia, as an entity, India doesn't have, a kind of, I cannot say control, but maintain. But bilaterally it has with most of the countries, either with Malaysia, Singapore, or with the Philippines, or with Vietnam. But bilaterally it is having. But then recently, what Indian government is talking about, in Indo-Pacific, ASEAN should have a center stage. But I don't know why it was talking about center stage, because it is not that ASEAN is coming into picture on Indo-Pacific, where they were not coming with anything to talk about Indo-Pacific. So I think somewhere we need to look at about how Act-East policy or Look-East policy, whatever we talk about. But in the beginning, 1940s, 50s, where we were reluctant to look towards Southeast Asia, where Southeast Asian countries wanted India's help for their freedom struggle. But later now we are talking about, because we do not know the policy makers, maybe in North, I don't know. I don't want to bring this North and South here. That's not the my primary objective here. Because in South we look at most of the people look for east facing the houses, here in South. But I don't know North. But how we forgot to look at the Southeast or East importance for us. But then somehow that happened
Because
because
the
of
history is like if you look at the spread of Tamil culture, it was all maritime. So and we used to have the best shipbuilding technology, whether it is the old Kaddu thing or the Farouk thing in the West Coast. But I think maybe change of technology has changed the picture. I think now, because from wooden base to more iron steel and more technology coming in, I think other.
But we have adequate cement, we have adequate labor, we have adequate steel, cement, but we are 1% in terms of shipbuilding. How we are going to look at? So that is something, and also our trade is largely 95% through waters. So I think we need to look at how the shipbuilding is important for us. And shipbuilding is something how you can connect with many people, because with many countries, because your ship can go to somewhere and it can carry the goods of other countries. So you can connect to them. So, but somehow this sector was really lagging behind, because China, South Korea, or Japan are now how they were able to come, are contributing most of the shipbuilding in the world. So I think there is some lacking, and somewhere we have to look at, and this is the time, and again I have to tell that G20 has come now to the stage where they are now allowing the academician to interact with the policy makers. And earlier it is not like that, because the policy makers never look at the academicians. But now the present government has taken G20 and they are reaching the faculty and students to get the real picture, how to bring those ideas into the policy making. So somewhere we need to look at, we have to now, the universities have to play a very significant role, in policy making.
Yeah, so leaving apart the positive aspects of maritime thing, we should also realize that the Indian coasts are undergoing a huge challenge in terms of coastal erosion, maybe wrong planning of are these ports really necessary? So all the whole Sagarmala projects and all that, it's going to completely disconnect the stakeholders, especially the fishermen and other communities, and especially with the danger of climate change being looming over us. What is going to happen to the thing is also a big question mark. So I think India is in general failing to look at these aspects because we are still going in for more ports and more coastal development, more power plants, more industries. We are pushing everything into the coastal. Of course, we have a good big coastline, but are we utilizing it in the right direction is another big question. So how do you look at that? I don't know. This is what we have been primarily bothering us, like especially since we work with
Particularly the plastic is also major. For fishing also, the plastic is a major hurdle for.
Yes. Plastic and for coastal tourism. So many of the pillars based on which you are suggesting the blue economy potential of India can progress, those pillars are completely, there's no foundation being set for them from our perspective. And as you said, until the government changes some positions, those pillars may not be strengthened in the near and foreseeable future.
There are major concerns about the way the ports are being developed in India. In terms for the sake of showing that maritime development, it's gone completely skewed, and it's actually 45% of India's coast is eroding, and we are not taking those factors into account. It's a major problem.
I would like to say something. Actually, I was reading one of the articles in, I think in the month of November. That was approximately 300 ships from the Chinese, they're heading to the Andaman Nicobar Islands. So they were keeping eyes on the nearby the surroundings. So I just started reading that article and what about security measures or the research as outcome, what was the particular problem. This is really one of the biggest problems. And I would like to submit that I was part of the Government of India's cultural exchange programs for 5 years. And extensively we worked on Southeast Asia, Central Asia, West Asia and East Asian countries. The Look East policy was converted to the Arctic policy during the Honorable Prime Minister Modi's government. And as far as the relations, because it's a matter of international relations and only the government can take a decision to proceed further, how to make it in a harmonious way. So the Ministry of Culture has developed a project called Project Mosham. Project Mosham is one of the important projects connecting India's not only the historical relations, but also to face the modern challenges and how to make India's relationship with other countries in a very more strongest and happiest way. So this project is one of the Government of India's important initiatives to connecting cultures and connecting peoples through different dimensions. As sir has mentioned that as a bilateral, we have a close relationship with the Southeast Asian countries. I was just asking when I came to Pondicherry that what is beyond the ocean? Someone is saying only water is there. No, how can it be? So I just googled. So if you go 800 kilometers from here, you will find the Port Blair, and from Port Blair to 500 kilometers ahead, you will find all the Southeast Asian countries. Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Laos, Philippines, all the countries. We had also a very ancient relationship, and when we talk about this bilateral things where the government's involvement is only the factor to create a good relationship with other countries. And I believe that economic, nuclear, these border problems, economic things are the major problems. But as far as the policy plan is developed, if you go what are the current developments during these 5 to 6 years of the international cooperation thing is concerned, a lot of things have been changed actually. Because I worked in that sector, you can refer to what are the developments has been done. So I was just trying to say this.
See, as far as maritime is concerned, we have India's maritime strategy released in 2005, but it confines only with the naval activities like force related. But whereas from the Western countries, if you can see the maritime related doctrines, it encompasses everything: business, trade, like sir said, infrastructure development, and it includes coastal communities, how they contribute to the societies. But whereas our thinking is very much confined with the navy and the naval related activities, which has to be it has to be a broader vision rather than confining to your own what you call security related things. Once the country's vision towards maritime perspective takes a broader perspective, automatically all these aspects what you have said will become part and parcel of our day-to-day affairs, and the policy making also become very what do you call, a holistic one than very much confined to the naval activities. So that kind of change is very much required. That is what I believe that will take India's maritime dream to be a reality or a realistic one. That is what I personally feel when we talk about India's maritime strategy.
Thank you. Really well said, Professor. So, what steps do you think India could take in this infrastructure, institution building that can create
As Sir said, that it requires the contribution from the policymakers, academicians, practitioners, business, everyone has to put their hands to make this picture as a beautiful painting or whatever that you want to make. Because if you are looking from South Block, it will be totally different. If you are looking from North Block, it will be totally different. If you see from the state perspective, it will be different. But it requires a broader vision where everyone's input or everyone's idea has to be given some sort of people has to consider each and everyone. So the space has to accommodate each and everyone's vision. Then you bring a consolidated document which can really address all these things. That will only result, or that will certainly give a good future for India's maritime future.
Also, talking about Dr. Kishore Kumar was talking about this project in Assam. It is a very, very good idea to re-establish the historical linkages, cultural linkages, and also economically how you link with the but still it is also in the nascent stage. It's not taken anything further. It's a good idea. So the statements are, I think, needs to be articulated, needs to be operationalized.
Yeah.
So that is something very important.
Yeah, all the concepts. It is remain in the conceptual stage.
I just remind one of the quotations from Swami Vivekananda. He mentioned one of his writings that smaller plants cannot grow under the shade of a big tree, and big works requires big and persistent effort for a long time. So we believe we live in a world where many threatenings are there. We have the challenges and the opportunities. Still, we believe on the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam thought which was given in the ancient times, and I would like to inform Professor Raju he is the member of many important committees. As you mentioned that nowadays the government has taken a decision to include the academicians to be part of these important initiatives, and I think these are very unique ideas which can be presented. And our Honorable Prime Minister is very open. He says he's Mann Ki Baat, and also he welcomes everyone's idea. So I think jointly we can do something, because the entire civilization is based on hope only. I just want to mention one of my experiences. Once I visited Russia to attend one of the conferences. So I wrote a paper on dialogue between civilizations and multicultural leading to sustainability and peace. So when I completed my paper, one of the senior persons asked me a question that you told about the civilizations, where are they? So is it a hope or any reality is there? So that changed the complete scenario of my research I did. So he just gave his visiting card to me and he told that I am running an institution and the name of the organization is Hope. So these are the things, and as I mentioned that sir is part of many important committees of the Government of India and including the setups like FICCI and ASSOCHAM. So your expertise will definitely add something to that domain of knowledge and how we can strengthen our relationships with other countries in terms of international relations. That is the need of the hour. And I'd like to also inform to all of you that we have started a project under the International Cultural Relations. The title of the project is India and the World. So we are basically working on different aspects of India and Indian culture. Basically, the approach is twofold in nature. The first is to explore the diversity of cultural expressions, which is influenced through different forms, and also establishing India's cultural relationship between other countries. So I welcome all of you to kindly share your valuable ideas. And if I request, sir, we are in a process to finalize the MOU with Pondicherry University. If some of the students can be part of those projects as interns, some project staffs, we can have some student exchange programs. So these are the small initiatives which you have started. I think that will add to something. This is my.
I'll add to that, I think Raghu will also support the All for Water for All is the umbrella organization, or it's not an organization, it's actually a loose collective of institutions, individuals, resident welfare associations, government employees, teachers. So it's an assemblage, let's say. And this group has some NGOs like Svarnim, Puducherry, Sri Aurobindo Society, AuroBharati, Pondicherry. We have our own Hope. Also, there's one organization which works with. Yes. They work with women's self-help groups and other youth groups. So one of the sides that we can help, maybe like a drop in a bucket to the blue economy, is again invite students to work with some of these communities directly as a way of helping the communities document their resources, which can then help build the marine spatial plans. If you leave it to the government, they may never take that step of considering the local communities as an equal partner in development of plans. But if the communities take that initiative and develop their own master plans, particularly the coastal communities, and then they will force the government to start a dialogue, and that dialogue will push either businesses, business interests within the communities, entrepreneurs, startups, etc., on how to solve challenges that are currently existing in the ground. So from our All for Water for All, we could actually invite students again from the Pondicherry University and other academic institutions in Pondicherry and surrounding areas to contribute your time with working with some of these issues locally, and we'll provide all the support we can, the interlinkages with the communities, the training if required on this community mapping, institution building, not necessarily by us directly, but by institutions like Center for Environmental Education, CSC, Center for Science and Environment. There are a lot of other organizations that were partnering with us during the Water Festival. They're all actually having a gaze at the Water Festival, how it proceeds, because it's a bit unique in India. Having a bottom-up approach to celebrating water and bringing everybody on par, the government as well as the individuals and the citizens together. So it's an open welcome to all of you. Anybody, Professor Raju is a Guruji for me, as well as now he's like a friend, and of course Humayunji were there as well. So they would be very good conduits for you to come and approach us for whatever research or community-based work that you'd like to do.
Actually, every beginning has its end. This is endless. So, as my colleague Dr. Jayanji mentioned, that we will continue this dialogue. This is not the first and the last event which we organized and finished. We will continue the dialogues in terms of different workshops, seminars, and academic exchange programs. And I request all of you to kindly be part of this. We will also support your university systems wherever it is possible. and it was really a good moment for us to assemble here on this water festival, and more specifically to listen from Professor Raju. On behalf of Sri Aurobindo Society, also collaborated with Pondicherry University for this event. So this is a beginning and we will take it forward. So I'd like to pay sincere thanks to the today's speaker for sparing his valuable time and speaking on an important subject, and thanks to all of you.